And we are living through an exciting time, as you all know, with what all the capabilities with AI is unlocking. And we have a lot of interesting things to share for all of you in this lecture. We've seen unprecedented growth from a lot of the companies in our portfolio that have gone from zero to tens of millions of dollars in revenue in 1 year, which was impossible before. Within a year, it would have taken 4 or 5 years to get to basically Series B level traction.
And like hundreds of millions of dollars in capital. I mean, it's just a different moment right
Different
now.
world. And we're going to tell you how these founders have done it. And we're going to go through really what it means to build a company now.
News. So let's talk about GStack. This is something that I discovered, late last year. I saw Steve Yegi, a famous blogger and engineer. I believe he was an early Googler. He wrote that people using AI coding agents are 10x to 100x more productive as engineers using Cursor and Chat today. And then at Anthropic, they're about 1,000x as productive as Googlers were in 2005. And I was like, what is going on? And so I had to try it. I opened Claude Code, and of course, I ended up writing, I'm around like 1 million lines of code in, which is really, really crazy now. And then the other thing that I discovered as we were doing this stuff is that you can boil the ocean. Who here remembers that term? Boil the ocean. Like, if you go and work someplace, you're gonna go into a meeting where people start saying things that are a little too scary, and then immediately people in that room are gonna say, whoa, 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 let's not boil the ocean. And my response to that, based on my experience with coding agents and what's happening right now, is actually let's boil the ocean. The things that you can do, like basically you sitting in front of one of these terminals, you can do the work of about 500 to 1,000 people. And if that's true, then like all of the expectations that we currently have in society around what a founder can do, what a company can do, what a small team can do, what you can do sitting in front of a computer, they're actually 1,000x wrong, right? And actually what's funny is that's baked into the model weights. Like, who here has asked Claude Code before, like, how long is this going to take? And it'll give you, oh, it's gonna take about 3 weeks to code all of this stuff. And then you press approve on the plan, and then literally it's done in about an hour. So, I mean, all of us have experienced that. Like, the models themselves have not caught up to this new reality that we can.
The building blocks. And if we really backtrack and step now a couple layers up, one of the key concepts of building an AI native company is you need to change fundamentally how companies are run. I think normally today, pre-AI, companies are basically run as an open loop. People make decisions, and a lot of those decisions take a while to come back, and is basically lossy. There's no concrete tight feedback loop. If a lot of you have studied control systems, how many of you have taken control systems and know the difference between open loops and closed loops? The problem with open loop systems is as error accumulates, the systems become more erroneous, and then it goes off the rails. As opposed to, let's say, closed loop system, very famous closed loop systems could be like PID controllers. You have a tight feedback loop into the controllers so that a lot of the error stays within check. And this is how a lot of robotic systems work a lot better. So we're basically now, with AI, have the capability to take a lot of these lossy information of how companies run into becoming a closed loop system. So what that means fundamentally, today for old school companies, information lives in people's head, in an org. They have a lot of side conversations, DMs and Slack. They have a lot of meeting notes that are not written. They have just vibes, how they feel about a particular decision, and all very lossy. This is basically how decisions in companies are made. And now, the ability is to change all of that into a closed loop system where you tie these agents that Gary described and how to implement it into basically the fabric of how you make decisions for a company. So the idea is that you would have an agent like a Hermes or OpenClaw embedded into all the decision making. And what it means, the agent needs to have read access to every single artifact that the company produces. So for some of you that might be working on some projects in school, you could have a small version of this. You could have an agent that basically connects to your GitHub codebase, connects to your Discord, and even start recording all the meetings you have with your teammates as you make progress. And as you get all this context, the agent can then suggest what are the best next items to work on or bug fixes. And
you put it in your G-brain.
Put it in your G-brain and the memory context. And this is how you start embedding this agentic system that starts building the system and self-healing. So that's one of the things that we're seeing companies do, where they can pull this crazy stats of one employee making in the revenue per company at least like $1 or $2 million, which now the public comps is, I don't know, take like a Salesforce, maybe the employee comps of how much revenue they bring in is under 6 figures. So this is huge. It's at least a 10x based on what we're seeing on the startups. And what does this look specifically is when agents are able to read the full state. In practice, we actually implemented this also at YC with our engineering team. We're basically able to cut the sprint time in half and produce 10x that much embodies this. Is you're living at the edge of the future with all the tools. In order to get your company to run fast, you've got to be trying all the tools. Everything is changing and moving so quickly. I mean, literally, we had this big revolution with agentic coding that just happened end of last year with Claude 4.5 when it came out. That's when things started to work. But if you were not building, if you were not at the edge, you would not be able to bring all those innovations into your company. So that's one of the things that we're seeing the best founders at YC do.
Yeah, there are people who are still operating like Copilot level from last year, and it's like, not gonna make it, bro.
They're not gonna make it. Now, the other thing that gets talked a lot about is, in order to build all these agentic systems to avoid, quote unquote, the AI slop, is what cannot be delegated is really this concept of a taste. How many of you have been hearing a lot on the taste is what's gonna be durable? I think that, and a lot of you agree with this, right? Coding, let's just call it, shipping code is going to zero, the cost of it. But what is not going to zero is the taste to build something good, the taste to discern what's good or bad. And as part of that, that really manifests in terms of evals into the systems for how you build all these agents. And what that means is that generic benchmarks won't make it, whether your product works. I know sometimes people are trying to just hit some generic public benchmark, MLU. Doesn't tell you whether your product or agents are really working or upsetting the user. A lot of the product that a lot of you, if some of you want to hopefully start companies, raise your hand, maybe, yeah?
All right.
Great. So part of it, the actual judge ultimately of whether something is good is whether users really want it. And with that, is gonna be different in every single domain. There's no way to automate that. And how can you tell? I think the agent, you will have to go into all the details deep. Did it follow the instructions? Was the answer correct? Did it preserve the customer trust? Was it something that was spewing correctly or incorrectly? Did it actually hit the business goals? Did it comply with the domain rules? So a lot of these things that Gary talked about in terms of resolvers and skillifying it and improving the system apply here. But in order to do that, you still need the human in the loop to tell when something goes wrong and to basically label a particular interaction or pipeline or workflow that is incorrect. And that is something that you're gonna have to own and do and painstakingly actually work. And I guess the other thing is, we wanna show you this graph that Anthropic posted in terms of the deployment in different industries. And we're seeing that right now, I think a lot of you, I don't know if a lot of you in computer science, how many of you are a little bit afraid of the CS jobs after you graduate? I mean, it's a real fear because, yeah, for this chart, taken by Anthropic, 50% penetration into the usage of these tools. But what is interesting, there's this giant white space in all these other domains in terms of like back office, finance, data, academics, cybersecurity, customer service. This is like a huge white space. There's room for hundreds and hundreds of AI unicorns that are waiting to be started, perhaps by some of you in the room.
I guarantee it.
Because some of you may feel it's like all the ideas are done, but what we're seeing is that is not the case.
Yeah, we're at like the first pitch of the first inning on the revolution, and you guys are the shock troops.
And one other stat I want to give you from the last batches at YC is that in the past, only the best top 1% of the companies grew 10% week over week. That was the metric that PG set. And in the past, perhaps the batch of Airbnb, only maybe Airbnb and another company hit it. But now what we're seeing, things have dramatically changed where on average, this is the growth of companies that within 3 months, they basically 3x.
Yeah, in the history of YC, this has never happened before. So we get to live in this moment where like people in this room can create something that actually has a real impact, and you can see it, and you can tell because your customers are going to say, I can't believe this exists, and thank you, and they'll pay you, and then every week 10% more people will be paying you.
And what we want to close off here, I know a lot of the lecture theme has been about how you could build a one-person frontier lab. This whole lecture was about that lab can become a one-person company, and that could be you. We just gave you all the secrets here.